There's a lot of things that make Montana great, from the mountains and lakes to some of the finest towns in the West. But what really makes this place special is you. Our communities are full of people who are working hard to build good lives and remarkable things. At Opportunity Bank, our passion is helping folks do just that. Together, we can make a good thing even better. Opportunity Bank of Montana. Stop by and see us or visit us online. Member FDIC.
Join Town Pump's Pump It Up Rewards Plus program and never pay full price for fuel again.
Save 5 cents on every gallon every day at any Town Pump across Montana.
Plus, earn and redeem points on your favorite in-store items to get free stuff with our clubs.
Stop in and pick up a rewards card. Download the Pump It Up Rewards Plus app today.
Or visit townpump.com/rewards to register and start saving.
Town Pump. Right down the road. Pump it up. Oh, yeah.
Well, I'm wearing a shirt that you would wear, and you're wearing what looks like a safety vest, but actually happens to be some homage to the fourth worst team in the NFL at this exact moment. What's
coming off a dub, buddy?
What's it say about the Chargers?
Oh,
what's it say about the Chargers that they have the same record as the Packers?
Well, that's not really the barometer of the worst of the worst. It's discussing about bad coaching in Los Angeles is all that is. But this little beauty has stood the test of time. I think we can date this to the 90s for sure, and maybe even a late 80 vintage. I'm going to probably put this at about 93, the starter jacket with the very cool striped pattern. So yeah, we're representing this week.
The rise of the resurrection of the Packers. People forget, like, the Packers have been pretty dang good actually for most of the last 30 years. Nowhere close to as bad as they were in the 70s and 1980s for sure.
When I was a boy, they were the cellar-dwelling worst of the worst. And it was Brett Favre and then the voice of God from Mike Holmgren calling Reggie White. That story where Reggie White said, somebody asked him, would you ever go to Green Bay? And he goes, I'd need God to tell me. So Mike Holmgren called him, got his voice message and said, Reggie, this is God. You're going to Green Bay. And so that was the start of the luring of one of the great pass rushers, maybe the great pass rusher of all time, to get him up there. So that's where our fortunes turned.
Well, we got to stop talking about this because we have a lot of other stuff to talk about. We
Right.
already, full redux on the rivalry game on Nuanez now yesterday. This is Tuesdays with Tootell. Ryan Tootell chiming in here, SkylineSportsMT.com, as well as Big Sky Breakdown Podcast Network and our Skyline Sports YouTube channel. One of the best parts about talking sports with you is when we talk about it, then we stop talking about it for a little while, and then we come up with a whole bunch of new stuff to talk about. What kind of new stuff have you come up with the next day, over the last day or so? Any new revelations that you've been thinking about when it comes to this 37-7 just absolute ass whooping by the Grizz?
Yeah, well, it's not so much new revelations, but it's stuff that we didn't get to. We talked about we talked about all the obvious stuff, like just what a dominant victory it was and how great it was. I do think that for Montana State, I mean, this is, a lot of people talk about a bye week during the course of a season as a self-scout week, right? Where you go back, you look at maybe tendencies that you've fallen into, whether it's play calling, whether it's scheme, whatever it might be, and also just areas that need to be improved. And you work on this stuff week in and week out, but maybe areas that have been lacking, like why are these persistent issues seeming to crop up again and again, and what do we need to do to fix them? I think that's a lot of what goes into kind of a self-scout, and you have the time during a bye week to do that. And I think there is a major self-scout that needs to happen for Montana State in this bye week, and it has to do with football a little bit, but it has to do with relationships a lot, and figuring out, okay, how are we going to both, teammate to teammate, teammate to coaches, coaches to coaches, carry ourselves forward in a manner that is productive and positive, that is helping rather than unhelpful or counterproductive, maybe the way to say it. And I think this falls directly at the feet of Coach Vegan. Brett Vegan is one of the most even keel and kind of amenable guys that you're going to find in football coaching, man. Like, he just is that. But that doesn't mean everybody on his staff, and it certainly doesn't mean that everybody that's playing for him carries that same persona and that same sort of disposition. And I think that he has some work to do as the leader of that team to get everybody on the same page and say, hey, this is what we're about. This is how we're going to do it. You can get on board or not, but that's it. Actually, there is no not. You can get on board, period. This is how we're going the rest of this season and into the playoffs, because they obviously are one of the best teams in the country. They got a seed and they expect to make a deep run. But we saw a little bit of chaos mixed with what appeared to be a little bit of dissension on Saturday. And that can't happen. That will be a one and done scenario for Montana State, even in Bozeman, even at home, if that sort of happens again. And the other thing is, just in general, how poorly they played overall. I mean, they had a handful of good plays, but they didn't make a ton of stops on defense. Obviously, they gave up the first 2 touchdowns that put them behind the 8 ball. They had some good defensive stands, some good drives defensively, but overall, I mean, they gave up 37 points, and I thought that it was just lacking across the board. And to have a game that's so important, has so much on the line, is against the rival, and to be completely outclassed in every aspect
For the second trip in a row to Missoula.
Yeah, no question. But that is cause for concern and deep introspection, I think, for Montana State. And I think that has to happen now, obviously. And we'll see if they're able to find the answers to the questions that were put in stark, bold text on Saturday.
Well, the last time that this specific coaching staff led Montana State into Washington Grizzlies Stadium, in the aftermath of that 29-10 loss, there was all sorts of scuttle and conversation, including the story about Taylor Housewright, the offensive coordinator for Montana State, sort of not having preemptive respect for the atmosphere at Washington Grizzlies Stadium. One source said that, he infamously said, well, it's not Michigan, it's Montana. We'll be fine. And then he had the rude awakening that, well, it's not Michigan. Well, Montana, it gets you pretty flustered pretty quick. I think that the first loss by this staff in Missoula is, there's never excuses for being ill prepared and getting, a haymaker landed and not being able to rally back whatsoever. But it was their first time ever in the belly of the beast. First time ever playing the Grizz in the rivalry game in Washington Grizz. That Grizz squad was, really, really hungry. And, if not for injuries to Cam Humphrey and Samuel Kim, they might have made a deeper playoff run than they actually did. And there's all those different factors. Also, though, there's the ultimate factor of the fact that the Cats were getting by, but barely at quarterback that whole year. And then that was like the final straw, where then they benched Matt McKay left. And then all of a sudden the rise of Tommy Mellott and all that other things. And Tommy Mellott was basically, unbeatable and unbeaten as a starting quarterback, unless he's playing against FBS opponents or the Dakota schools that win the national championship. That's it. Those are the only games where he's actually started and finished games and lost, right? And I guess Idaho earlier this year. But 17-3 as a starter coming into that game. Well, they don't have any of those excuses now, though. Staff's been there for 3 years. They've been to Missoula before, and they got whipped worse than they have the last time. And sometimes this is overplayed, but dysfunction you could see rising up. Why didn't Sean Chambers play? Why are the coaches at each other's throats on the sidelines? Why is there no adjustment of, calming people down and getting them back in? Again, it's accentuated a lot. Last year the Grizz looked like that. I mean, you thought the Grizz were the most dysfunctional football team in the United States of America if you had just watched the second half in Bozeman last year. So sometimes,
well, for 30 minutes they were.
they were
right.
But I do think though that last time you had, okay, here's the things where we got launch points. We got a new quarterback. We got a new game plan. We're gonna take the the world by storm. We got Troy Anderson who wants redemption. We got all these seniors that want redemption. How do they find that now with this group, though? Because this is not a lot of seniors on this team. This was, I think, a lot more unacceptable of a loss if you're Montana State. I just think that there's a lot more questions that arise from the result.
Do you have a DUI or misdemeanor conviction? If so, don't let your past hold you back. Hi, I'm attorney Dave Maldonado, and you may be eligible to have your record cleared today. Visit BigSkyDefender.com to see how.
I agree with you, and I think there is a couple things. I touched on this, with you yesterday, but it's just so important that this team does not fall behind. And they now, I think, need to put together game plans early in games. I mean, I understand everybody's trying to make stops and everybody's trying to score. That's the point. But you have to find a way that you don't end up behind. And I also think there's another one realization that I think needs to be made, which is the way that Tommy Mellott became the quarterback of this team, which you alluded to. Right. He comes in, is this freshman kid from Butte, tough as nails, great runner, is all the things that Montana products look like they should be when they're playing quarterback. And Bobcat fans rally behind this kid, and he's Tommy football in Montana, and he has a ton of great qualities, and he has grown. He is a strong son of a gun, that kid. Now, 3 years into playing at Montana State, and he does a lot of things well, and he fits what they do in a lot of ways really well.
Yep.
He also has some very real weaknesses. There's some things that he is not great at and that he can't be asked to do. And if you ask him to do it, or if the team finds himself in a position where that is required, he is not going to be the answer. And it's not because of effort or try or, whatever. There's some shortcomings there at quarterback. And you got to be able to appreciate and recognize that and understand, hey, man, like, we can't put ourselves in a position. We have to play to Tommy's strengths, is what I'm saying. You got to do the things that allow him to be the best version of himself and do what he does really well. And yeah, if you got a guy who's as talented as Sean Chambers is, he's got to play. Like, he's got to be out there. So figure it out. Like, find the times when he's going to be out there, not just because now it's red zone and we roll him out. No, he needs to be out there making plays for your football team.
They also got to find a way to make plays for Tommy as well. Like, I don't know if you watched Sunday Night Football or Monday Night Football last night, but
oh yeah.
I mean, the Kansas City Chiefs are 7-3, and they have lost 2 games because their receivers cannot catch the ball. Period.
Yep.
If I'm Patrick Mahomes, I am furious. That's the same thing for the Bobcats. Like, sure, Idaho had a brilliant game plan against Montana State. They played keep away the whole first half, and they really flustered their pre-snap looks and made Tommy Mellott just pull the ball too quickly and all that stuff. But there's 2 specific throws in that game where he threw an on-the-dime back shoulder fade that should have been a 40-yard gain, and they dropped it. And he also threw a touchdown. He threw a touchdown right before halftime that Taco Dowler dropped. He scores that, and then they come back and score in the second half. They win that game. They lost by 3. They win by 4 if they catch that touchdown. It's as simple as that. It's the same thing in the rivalry game. He had 3 throws, one where he overthrew the guy, releasing up the seam, but that was what the Grizz were giving him on that play. That's on Tommy. The other 2, though, including what would have been a surefire touchdown to Ty McCullough that could have helped swell the momentum in this game, and they don't make the play. So if you're going to ride with Tommy Mellott and that's it, you got to make sure the other guys are making the plays as well. And I mean, that's where I think the disconnect is for all of the progress that they've made. I mean, it's hard to, they're leading the country in scoring offense without being able to throw the ball. So they obviously know how to do it offensively most of the time, but Tommy Mellott has looked no better throwing the ball than in his first 3 starts of his college football career, the first 3 starts of his playoff career as well. They got to figure that part out. And I think that this is all colored by the fact that the guy who I think is actually the best dual threat quarterback in the conference, Sean Chambers, played 6 snaps against the Grizz and 4 snaps against Idaho. And those are the 2 games he lost. It's just, regardless of what you know internally or not, you either got to squelch that narrative externally or you got to explain why you're doing what you're doing.
And I also thought, and I'm not saying this needs to be consistent, but some of the best and most off balance, some of the ways to put the defense off balance the best that I've seen Montana State is when both of them are on the field at the same time. I like seeing Sean Chambers and Tommy Mellott both in the backfield because they can both run the ball, as we know, and you can do things where you run an option and then that becomes a pass, little or even big wrinkle type of stuff that you can't do otherwise. And I think they really complement each other well in that way. Again, I'm not saying this is like, you roll 15 plays of this double quarterback on the field at the same time thing out there, but you could do a handful and force the defense to respond and see if you can catch them in a look they're not prepared for. What if we said, Colter, that 80% of the big plays that happen are because the offense was able to scheme up or a defensive miss, or there was just a flat defensive breakdown. It's right. Not because guys are 6'4" and 265 and just run people over and make great plays. It does happen, but more often than not, big plays happen because of defensive breakdowns. Period. End of story. Whether those are schemed up because it was a great offensive play call, or whether it because it was a defensive lack of communication, whatever it is. So try and put the defense in a position to mess it up, And I think you can do that with a 2-quarterback look if you're Montana State, and you can be functional. It doesn't have to be cutesy stuff. Like, you can just sit there and run the ball just like you would. But if you have Tommy Mellott out there as opposed to one of the wide receivers, all of a sudden there's a little alert that's on for the defense that now they got to, keep an eye on and see what you can get out of that. But in any case, no question that Ten needs to play more, period. Like, he's just got to be out there.
On the Grizz side of things, as we record this, Tuesdays with Tootell here on SkylineSportsMT.com, the All Big Sky Awards just came out. And Bobby Hauck was the unanimous selection for Big Sky Conference Coach of the Year. And I was really thinking about this and the earning of this award by Coach Hauck. And certainly to come out of the Northern Arizona game where they looked like a complete and utter disaster and win 7 games in a row and get the 2 seed and win the first outright championship at Montana since 2009, that in itself is worth those lofty accolades. But this is an award that he earned since the last time they got whipped in Bozeman. They made so many different changes, whether they were grand changes, like the complete reshuffling of the coaching staff, and pretty much every guy except Justin Green getting a new job, 2 new coordinators. But also, just imagine where this team would have been if they didn't get Clifton McDowell to late decommit. I mean, Clifton McDowell was soft committed to the Grizz and then decommitted from the Grizz and committed to Southern, and he was going to Southern, period. That was the thing for 4 months. And then they somehow, some way got him to decommit and come here, and he didn't join the team until like a week before fall camp, which is why he was probably behind, but he saved their season. But you can go on down the line from the schematic changes defensively, the alignment changes, the empowerment of Tim Hauck to be a defensive analyst, the gusto and the fortitude to go with Eli Gilman at running back when you already have senior Nick Osmo, who's a returning all Big Sky guy, and Xavier Harris, who rushed for 100 yards against Washington. And you say, nope, we got a guy better than that. We're going to go with this kid and Eli Gilman. All those things, the changes, we talked for so long about the number one thing holding this program back was the stubbornness of Coach Hauck and his staff. Well, he still acts like a stubborn son of a gun when he's talking to you, but he adjusted literally everything. They literally changed the entire thing, and he deserves so much credit for that, even if I know he doesn't want it.
Well, no question. I mean, let me add my vote to the unanimous Coach of the Year ballot. I mean, that there's no question. I mean, I've now said this for, I think, 3 weeks straight now on this, that this is the best job that Bobby Hauck has done in his second tenure at Montana. It is by far the best. The team is by far the most progression a team has made with him. Now, I will say it's maybe one of the worst I've ever seen a team look coming out of fall camp under Bobby Hauck. Usually they come out absolutely on fire. And even though this team, was 3-0 in the non-conference, it was a rocky road at best to get to those 3 wins. And then obviously that NAU loss.
How much of that was guys just not having played, though? Like Jackson Lee didn't have a chance to really become a player because he never played because he was backing up Robbie Hauck. Trevin Gradney had never played because he's sitting behind Justin Ford, Like we never see you guys have a chance to play.
Obviously the experience thing is real, but it's college football, man. Like
Sure.
every year you're going to have minimum a half dozen guys and maybe a dozen guys that are starters or heavy rotation players that have essentially never seen the field or rarely have seen the field up until that season. I mean, that's just the nature of it. And so, I don't know, it was it more for Montana this year than other teams, maybe, but at the end of the day, this is a team that wasn't very good and then was downright pitiful, and then was like okay, and then was like, whoa, pretty good, and now we're talking about national championship level football team right here. I mean, that's absolutely stunning. And you're right, Bobby Hauck deserves all the credit. And one other thing, I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on this, because Bobby Hauck has, going back to the first time he was the head coach here, has always had we talk about the no star system, but you earn your position every single week. It's a new depth chart every single week. And guys who were starters 4 or 5 weeks in a row, they have a bad game, or they have, maybe a lack of effort perceived by the coaching staff. And all of a sudden, you're not even second on the depth chart. You're third on the depth chart. It doesn't matter that you're, a fourth year senior or whatever. We're going with somebody else until you come back and figure it out, and trying to motivate guys essentially by sitting them or by making them worry that their position is in jeopardy all the time. What I saw Bobby Hauck do this time, to your point, is he said, well, we don't have a choice. We're playing all our best guys all the time. And it's not to say that he wasn't mostly doing that anyways, but a lot of times I felt like there was playing time that was message sending to other guys that weren't on the field. And this season, it was like, we don't have time to send messages. We got to win. We got to find a way with our best players and our best schemes to get it done. And if that means that Gilman usurps Osmo as the starting tailback in this game or in that game, or just for this part of the season, so be it. If that means that we need to see if Ayat can come in, not because we're trying to get Clifton McDowell out of, anything, but because he does some different things, we want to see how he's going to go, then good. And what that means is that, Janet Caro is going to be there every single play. Governor's going to be there every single play. And if a guy, has a bad week or has a bad week of practice, he's still going out there. We're not going to sit here and mess around with, the motivational tactics of trying to create toughness or whatever it is. We're going out here to win games. We're going to bring the most talented players in every scenario that we can.
At Blackfoot Communications, our mission is to connect people, businesses, and communities, bringing a world-class fiber network to homes, communities, and businesses of all sizes. Ensures Montanans have access to fast, reliable, and secure internet and phone services. Are you ready for fiber internet? To find out if fiber is coming to your area, visit goblackfoot.com/readyforfiber. Connect to more with Blackfoot Communications.
Well, it's such a great point, because if you have a Justin Ford and then whoever's backing him up, then if Justin Ford isn't playing as much as that other player, or there's fluctuation in reps, it's because Justin Ford is hurt, or because you want more out of Justin Ford and you're trying to
Because he's in the doghouse, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Marcus Wellnell, Patrick O'Connell, all those guys are they're far superior to the rest in talent. That's where this Grizz team is thriving right now. There's not that much discernible difference between Trevin Gradney, Ronald Jackson, Jace Klusewicz, and Corbin Walker. There's no discernible difference between Jackson Lee, Nash Vouch, Garrett Graves, and and Ryder Meyer. Their 4 safeties are Madden rating all the same. Their 5 linebackers are all the same. But that's what creates this ferocious machine, right? Like, if you're doing Madden ratings, this team has a 99 who wears 99, and he's right in the middle of the defense. That's Alex.
Yeah. Yeah.
They have another guy who's probably a 90 plus in Braxton Hill. And then they got a whole bunch of dudes who are like 86 to 89s, but they got 15 of them.
Yeah.
And then when you roll them and roll them and roll them and roll them, I totally agree with you, though. There's no room. No one's assuming that Bobby Hauck's playing mind games when Levi Janicaro and Riley Wilson each started 6 games this year. No one's saying, oh, one guy's getting messed with. Nope, that guy just played better this week, so he's playing. They did the same thing with Tyler Flink and Ryan Tyrrell. Whoever played better that week, he's the starter, but they're both going to play. And if they both play well on Saturday, he'll be the starter next week. That's where the system works, though. That's why this no-star system is better when you don't have centerpieces to it.
So let me ask you this then. When we talk about, you asked me when Montana State was going to play Idaho, is there any way Montana State loses this game? And I said, yeah, because it's college football. But no one thought that they were going to lose to Idaho. I mean, they're the number 2 team in the nation. They had lost but one game, and a great game to the unanimous number 1 team in the nation in South Dakota State. And we thought, you know, coming off a lot, Idaho had just lost to Montana, who was still on the come up a little bit. The Grizzlies, they weren't at the level they are now in terms of you know, obviously number 2 in the nation and all that. And it just looked like, it's going to be another solid, handled Montana State road win, and then it wasn't. What I'm saying is that in college football especially, teams look great until the game that they don't. And what I want to know is for Montana, who has been just absolutely as good as it gets for the past 3-4 weeks, really since the bye week, you know, so you started with Northern Colorado and then roll right on through Sac State, Portland State, and now Montana State. If they have a weakness, or if there's a scenario under which all of a sudden we go, well, what happened here? And they get bounced at the playoffs, whether it's the first game, second, third, whatever it might be. What is the scenario by which the University of Montana is the team that looks like they're just going to roll? They're just better than everybody else. They're just hotter than everybody else. They're playing great football. And then they roll out there one of these playoff Saturdays and it just goes sideways on them. How would that happen?
Man, the same factor that's helped them win so much the last month and a half. A quarterback from Spring, Texas, who's never played in a game when it's 8 degrees. You know?
Right.
Here's the thing that you could say about Clifton McDowell, and this is why he's the newcomer of the year in the Big Sky Conference, as announced today. For the bulk of Montana's conference season, everybody in the league said, okay, here's what we're going to do to you. We're going to make that guy beat us. And to his credit, he did enough to win multiple times. And then on Saturday against the Cats, he straight went out and took it. I mean, he looked not only like a guy that, you know, just had to make 3, 4, 5 throws and get his playmakers the ball. He literally made throws that won them the game, that kept not won them the game, but that kept the gas pedal all the way down.
I mean, he's just an 80% completion percentage, 17 to 22. Unbelievable.
I mean, we've said all year that if he all he needs to do is complete like 8 to 11 passes and just get the ball in space to Junior Bergen and Aaron Fonts and Keelan White. If he goes 17 of 22 for 250 plus, they're unbeatable. They will win the national championship if he does that. Yeah. But can he do it now? Because everybody said, okay, we're going to take this, and this away. This guy beat us. Now what happens when they try to take him away? That's going to be the number one thing that opponents are going to do moving forward. That plus him being from, again, Spring, Texas. I mean, it was cold on Saturday, but it was not anywhere close to as cold as it's going to be here in a couple weeks. So
yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I think that's one factor. But in terms of like the dysfunction or infighting or, you know, the defense being so prone to melting down and breaking apart like they were these last several years, that ain't happening. I think they have a pretty foolproof method. If they get good to great play out of Clifton McDowell, they're going to Frisco.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, it's certainly a poor bet to bet against them right now, but I just think sometimes football is so fickle, you know, and all of a sudden you get these teams that are absolutely rolling hot as they can be, and then even like North Carolina. North Carolina was the number 10 team in the nation, undefeated, and it's like, hey, this is a different type of North Carolina team. They're better than what they've been in years past. They got a Heisman candidate level quarterback and on, and then nope. Lost to Duke, you know, and it just happens. And no one would have picked Montana to lose to Northern Arizona. Not when it happened, and certainly not now. Right. It did happen. And you wouldn't have picked, you know, probably Montana State to lose to Idaho, but it did happen. You wouldn't have picked Idaho to lose to Weber, but it happened. And this is why it's so fun and interesting, because you never know.
Have you or a loved one been charged or accused of a crime? If so, the stress can leave anyone feeling helpless and alone. But you don't have to be alone. Hi, I'm Dave Maldonado. and I've successfully defended Montanans for over a decade in these situations. So if you're tired of being scared, let's get you prepared. To see how, visit BigSkyDefender.com today.
You are not alone. Visit BigSkyDefender.com to find out more on how you can fight back against local and federal criminal charges.
The home field is just so hard to overcome, especially in December in Montana, man. Like, yeah, Idaho lost to Weber in Ogden. You know, the Cats lost to Idaho in the Kibbe Dome. Home field advantage is so real, and it's so real in football, period. But it's so real in the Big Sky, and that's accentuated as, you know, the calendar turns to December. I mean, you pointed out on Nuanez Now yesterday, no one thought Coastal Carolina was going to come into Missoula and win. No one thought Wofford was either. But those are two examples of like what? I mean, I bet you the Grizz are like 50-2 at home in the playoff. I mean, the Grizz lose playoff games. I mean, for real though, the Grizz lose playoff games when they go on the road. And the two times that they've lost at home when it was unexpected are the games that are unforgettable.
Well, what we need to do is overlay the Grizzlies' home road, you know, win-loss percentage in the playoffs with the average, because obviously the home teams are going to be overwhelmingly, you know, 80+% wins because of the
North Dakota State has lost one home playoff game in their entire history.
Right. And they've played 2 total road playoff games in their history because they're always at home until this year. So here we go.
That's right.
One other little thing.
About 1 minute.
Okay. Just a little ancillary thing. You and I, when we were middle, high school, college, it was a foregone conclusion that the University of Montana was going to have 2 home playoff games every single season and maybe 3. And that the Grizz were going to be, you know, a top 4 seeded playoff team or better. And that there's going to be a couple more home games every single year. That hasn't been the case for a very long time. And I'm very happy for the community of the city of Missoula, certainly for the university and for the business community in general in the city of Missoula, and just the spirit of the town to say, hey, we got not just a home playoff game, but, you know, obviously got to win, but we're looking at multiple home playoff games. It's such a boost for the town, for Western Montana, for the university, for everybody, and it's a great thing for them. So I'm very happy for the city and all that goes into making Missoula.
Join Town Pump's Pump It Up Rewards Plus program and never pay full price for fuel again.
Save 5 cents on every gallon every day at any town pump across Montana.
Plus, earn and redeem points on your favorite in-store items to get free stuff with our clubs.
Stop in and pick up a rewards card. Download the Pump It Up Rewards Plus app today.
Or visit townpump.com/rewards to register and start saving.
Town